Hi, I'm Chris Ryan. I've been a journalist, I am a teacher, I write crime books. Every once in a while, I get the honor of writing a certain African-American soldier of fortune named Blackjack, who was created by an old friend of mine named Alex Simmons.
How old?
Oh, we're talking old friend of mine. But today we're not going to talk about Blackjack. We're not going to talk about one of his other creations. Alex Simmons is also the co-founder of Kids Comic Con. Today we're going to talk about that. Alex, how you doing?
Hey,
Good to see you.
same here, Chris. Always good. And Larry, you haven't changed much.
I haven't because I have a pure heart.
Anyway, so
Listen, I want you to talk to me about Kids Comic Con. Can you take us through your thoughts about why you felt there was a need to have a Kids Comic Con?
Okay, so as you can tell, I've been around for a while.
A little bit.
Yeah, just a wee bit, right? And when I was growing up, we still had a holdover from the 40s where a lot of cartoon shows, radio shows, movies and things were actually produced for families and kids. You know, it was entertainment material. I wouldn't call it educational, but it was geared so that it wasn't anything
Kind of
to
general
shock.
audience.
Yeah, general audience. And again, fun stuff, exciting stuff, adventure stuff. And a lot of those were things that stimulated the imagination. And when I was growing up, I didn't grow up in the 40s. When I was growing up in the 50s and 60s, we had comics. And, everything from Superman, Batman, and Green Lantern, all of those DC characters, as well as Harvey and some of the other publishing houses, they did material for kids. So you could have adventure stories, goofy, crazy, silly stories, but all of it was general audience, right? And again, that was stimulating not only on an entertainment level, but also an imagination. You sort of imagined you were out in space, or you imagined you had superpowers, you imagined you were exploring the caverns of the earth.
Or the Wild West.
Yeah, that too. That's right. Let's grab those westerns. But then, as the 80s, 70s, 80s really started to shift in terms of what was happening in society, more material became more adult-oriented.
You mean in comics?
In comics and films and television shows. But yes, in comics, much more adult-oriented. And really, in the 80s in particular, a lot more violent. Into the 90s, a lot more violent. And so I kept feeling like comics were just saying, it's been nice, kids, but we're going to have more fun.
They started being aimed more towards post-adolescent audience.
That's an articulate way of phrasing it. Yes, post-adolescent, yeah.
In both the graphic violence and gratuitous sexual picture illustrations.
Sex, drugs, rock and roll. Yeah.
So how did this lead this kind of shift towards the violent and sexual? How did that lead to Kids Comic Con?
Well, once again, thousands, hundreds of thousands of kids, literally what they read were comics. You couldn't get them to read a history book. They fight and scream. They were reading comics. You start doing this material, two things were happening. Either kids were now reading this other stuff without any monitoring, which was, it wasn't appropriate for certain of them. And the other end was they would just, I can't get comics anymore because it's supposedly for an older audience. So now I'm not reading.
There was also a shift away from the newsstand and into the specialty store.
Right, the comic, which was supposedly a boom at one point. But either way, comics were being taken. Yeah, comics were being taken away from the kids, and I felt that was a bad move, a really bad move for the kids. The heck with the companies for a moment. Let's forget the dollar for a moment. Again, kids weren't reading. Kids, the imaginations were being stimulated, and a lot of what we did as kids, and even the generation after me, was you read these things, you get all excited, you start writing your own stories or drawing your own stories. So now they weren't doing that either. Right. So to me, I felt they needed to have something at the conventions that were specifically geared toward family and kids.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. What were you seeing at conventions at that time?
Well, okay, my greatest peeve was that, you'd have Archie and some of the DC regular kind of issues and books and things right next, and Felix the Capt right next to Betty the Bouncing Bimbo, which was, I'm sorry folks, I know it's not PC, but the bottom line is there are a lot of women who were exotic dancers or, doing adult adult films or whatever, or pinup models would have these very explicit photographs, books. They had their own comics, which were very explicit. Again, for the age range, very explicit, right next to the other comics that kids were being pulled over to. So they're looking at Felix, and then they look over and there's this material. And I just kept saying again, like, okay, how about a mature section for the kids, for the adults? Put that down. I'm not saying don't do it, just can we have areas? Right. And, no, we can fill this table here. So to me, and once again, you're pushing the kids away. You're saying, there's nothing here for you. Right. And the industry didn't seem to get that was a problem until they started losing money. Because now kids weren't reading comics, so now they're not buying the comics. So now it's where's all those thousands of dollars that we were making from, like I think Batman at one point was selling instantly, it didn't matter which title, 100,000 copies, boom, like that. Suddenly they're down to 40,000. Okay, so to me it was always about, let's have an area at your cons that's kid and family friendly. That's all I was asking
bring
for.
families back.
Yeah, exactly. Because mom and dad will plunk down that money and you guys will still be doing okay.
So that was the idea of Kids
That was the initial idea, was to have an area in the already organized and funded, conventions.
So what would you say the main mission of Kids Comic Con?
Well, the main mission was to complete the mission it originally set out to do, which was to create an area that was, or create an event that was for family and kids, where anything that you saw on the tables you could read, you could look at. It was there for you.
Like a safe zone.
Right, safe zone. But also, it wasn't just that the material was there. I mean, initially, I wanted kids to understand how it worked. That you could write these stories, you could draw these stories, you could tell your own stories. You could find, maybe you like, goofy dog stuff, but you know what, here's this thing about a kid growing up in a small town, and maybe this is going to be interesting to you. So I wanted them to be able to find the material, and that the artists and writers would interact with them.
Right. I want to break that down
Sure.
further, because I'm hearing at least 3 features.
Okay.
So first, let's talk about the tables. Kids come, families come to Kids Comic Con, and there are tables laid out around the room.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that you're saying is that everything on those tables you can feel confident that your kids can look at. Right? So that was marked different from the time, right? Mm-hmm. The people at the tables, right? The artists, the writers, the publishers, right? And Archie has shown up and all that sort of stuff. Want to be there to meet the kids.
Meet the kids, meet the parents.
They understand they're the next generation of patrons, right? So there's a friendliness and an openness.
There has to be.
Right? That we might not see at the larger cons. No diss on the larger cons, but it's a slightly different vibe than you've created at Kids Comic Con. And then, because I have been involved occasionally, you have provided spaces for kids to get drawings from the artists, or do drawings, or take classes.
Workshops.
With the artists, with the publishers, with volunteers. Can you talk about that?
Well, again, that was the other component. Stimulating a child's imagination is one thing. Then what do they do with it? Understanding that comics are drawn, but first they're written, and then they're penciled, and then they're inked. Okay, that's it, but what do you do with that? How does that work? How can I do that? I always wanted the kids to be able to initially talk to the artists and writers and hear about that. But the other natural extension of that was sit down and draw, And so we found, and that's a prerequisite of people who come. Publishers and artists can come just to sell the material, but they have to be willing to talk to a child, even if the child doesn't buy something. All right. But the other thing is we had artists who would come and they would do workshops or do speaking engagements or panels to help the kids understand, help the families understand how this works. And we would even have educators who come, teachers, librarians, and so forth, again, to see the material, to see what's out there that kids are interested in. And then, as graphic novels became more popular, to find what they want to put in their libraries or in their schools, or what I should buy for my child to read because this is what he or she is interested in. So they had the exposure to the material, they had the ability to talk to people who produce this material, and they had the ability to take a workshop for a day, so that they, and in different workshops, right? And so that they could actually leave our events, not only with stuff they bought, but with stuff they created.
Now, let's talk about, can you share some of the reactions you've received from your patrons, whether it's the kids, the parents, and I do know teachers and librarians love this con as well. So if you could talk to us about a little bit of that.
Well, it's funny. I have what I call the lone ranger syndrome, which is, you ride into town, you do the right thing, and then you leave before anybody can thank you.
Who was that mask, man?
That's right, man. I don't wear a mask, but the bottom line was
that guy does.
Yes, the good old Captain KC. I was, into creating this thing and making it happen and enjoying watching the people running around and stuff like that for several years. And people would say things to me about exactly what you just asked, and I will get to that in a second. And I would stand there sort of flabbergasted, because you want this to happen, but then when people tell you it's happening, you don't know what to say. So, for instance, aside from watching the kids' eyes bug out and everything like that, I'll tell you, the very first KCC, we're there from 10 in the morning until 6 in the evening, and it was the very first one we'd done, and all these publishers and artists, and they were behind their tables, and they had their interactions there, and I think it was something like between 700 and 900 people came that day, right? Finally get everybody out. And I really only done it with the idea I'd do this one time to show the other cons, there's an audience for this is how it works. See, so they'll do it, right? Because they have the money of it. I close the doors, I turn around, and the artists and publishers and everything, man, did you see that? Kid wants to read my book. And they're bouncing off the walls. Because at the bigger cons, with hundreds of thousands of bodies all over the place, or even the mid-sized one with thousands, they never saw the kids enjoying their material. And they literally, guys are banging on the tables and they're saying, "You're going to do this again, right? You're going to do this." Well, I was actually just but their enthusiasm was infectious. And Gene Adams, who I co-founded this event with, said, "Well, we can probably do this again." And so how will we do that? And so here we are 13 years later. That's one reaction. So that was the first one. The other one was, there are photographs we have from a number of our events of kids just totally into it, on the floor reading. Boys reading books that people thought were for girls. Girls reading adventure stuff, girls and boys coming in different costumes and things that they made or they bought, talking to people, enjoying themselves. So that was another reaction. And then I had a couple of things, but the one that stands out is there was this family. It was a grandmother, her daughter, the mother, and I think probably like a 7-year-old child, young girl. And they were all in sort of, average clothing stuff, but the grandmother was wearing an army fatigue jacket, and an old sweatshirt and stuff like that. And, they came in, and we don't charge at the door for the kids and all that kind of stuff. So they were walking around, and about halfway through the day, they're still here. So we started at 10, so it's maybe like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I see the daughter over here doing this, and at one point the grandmother comes over to me, and she's almost in tears.
She's the one that always.
Yeah, and she's saying, "Bless you and thank you for creating something. It's the first thing I've ever been able to enjoy with my daughter and my granddaughter." Dude. And I'm getting all misty and all that. I'm saying, "No, you're welcome. What else can I get for you? Get her some more stuff. Get her some more art for the kid. Deflect, because I can't reach silver and then ride out of town with it." So that's the kind of things we've had teachers saying positive things, and we're now starting to collect more of the testimonials, but they're from a huge range of them.
All right, Kimosabi. We talk about others. What's the most fulfilling thing for you about your work with KCC?
That's a tough one.
No riding off on the horse.
Yeah, right. Really, where did you put that horse? I guess it's in levels. So the very first thing, the top of the heap, is seeing the children enjoying it, seeing them get it, seeing them suddenly becoming excited. Not only because they're seeing these books and things that they're curious about or they're interested in or whatever, but that they can talk to these artists. That when some of the artists that I know, and some of them have been team workers, not only just comic book artists, but puppeteers and graphic designers and performers, showing the kids how to do these things and watching the kids get it. that's magic. That's power. That's empowerment.
Give them license to be
unleash
what they have in
to be children, first and foremost. Secondly, that your imagination is a valid power. That from that comes so many other possibilities. I never saw this as creating this event so that we could create the next 13 years worth of comic artists and things. It was always about validating children's imagination and getting them curious and wanting them to discover, what else can I do? Where else can I go? What else can I imagine? That's what it was always about. And when you see it in action, and I've been blessed enough to work with enough kids, because I do this outside of this organization as well as at the event, that some of them have grown up and come back to tell me the influence. And they didn't go into comic making and that sort of thing. But the fact that they could now think outside the box, or that they were going through a rough time when they were kids, and this was something that gave them hope, or gave them something to hold on to, or they were able to make up characters and things that helped them deal with that. So that's probably my biggest takeaway from this, is knowing that we have served so many, not only here, but we've traveled and served so many young people, and even some families, because when I do workshops, for instance, the kids are drawing, trying to create these characters and things, I always tell the parents, I'm sorry, we teach by example. Pick up a pen and paper, work with your kids, right? And sometimes the parents will, especially if they're younger children, the parents will be there helping them figure out their ideas. And sometimes I'll see a parent say, wait. You're helping your daughter figure this out. Don't do it for her. Work with her. Oh, well, I just, and
maybe they always want to draw their own comic.
Well, that's fine. and sometimes I get them to that. And also what you'll get is sometimes father or mother, the child is doing one character, and you see the father or mother start to get into it. They do their own, and then we do a display at the end where we talk about it, and you see the families just having this great time.
And that's license to play. That's probably the perfect bonding for parents or the family, but also the freeing of both. Mm-hmm. What are some of the charity organizations that KCC has partnered with?
Okay. Well, there have been a few, but I think the one that stands out most in my mind is Ronald McDonald House, because we've done a number of different things with them over the years. So, for instance, at one point, about 4 or 5 of us went to Ronald McDonald House. They have a playroom in the basement. It's not like a basement, the lower level of their building. And it's a beautiful place, but we were down there just doing like little mini drawing, workshops with the kids and things like that. And I guess maybe some people don't know, Ronald McDonald House basically houses families of children who are undergoing treatment for cancer. I mean, they're going in for chemo and all of that. And so sometimes these are families from another city, another state, another country, and they get to stay in this, nice little room or apartment in the building, right? So these are kids and families who've been sort of disconnected from their home area for sometimes a long time. So it was creating this little area of play, and we have them drawing and so forth. And there was one little boy who just came back from treatment, and he was so weak. He was maybe like 6 years old. His mother's holding him and everything. She wanted him to see what's going on, see if he would get into it. He was just so tired. So I said, well, don't worry. She said, I'm so sorry. I said, no, let him just sit and watch. It's okay. It's all good. And at one point, he whispers in her ear, and she looks at me. She wants to know if someone would draw the bat symbol on the back of his hand. So I got our young artist, Soraya, to come over, and she sat there, and she drew it. He just watched her draw the bat symbol on his hand. And he looked at it after a while, and leans into his mother's ear again and whispers, and now she got a tear rolling down her cheek, and he wants to know if she would do Green Lantern on the other hand.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I said, absolutely. And we all, you come to give, but you get back.
Oh, yeah.
You get back. So after that, we did the street fairs. We've done Superhero Day with them every year for the past 4 or 5 years.
What's Superhero Day?
It's a 2-hour event once a year where the kids dress up as superheroes. Not just superheroes, but they dress up as superheroes, but also heroes. So the fire department gets involved, the police department gets involved, rescue gets involved. Doctors, nurses get involved, and the idea is heroes. The word is Superhero Day, but it's all about heroes. And so we're doing it again this year. Matter of fact, it's going to be the beginning of April.
And those people you mentioned,
consider superhero.
Yeah, well, there you go. I think you can be a hero without super, but yeah. So Ronald McDonald House is one of the companies, one of the not-for-profits that we've worked with quite a bit.
What are some of the other countries that KCC has visited or taught in or interacted with?
Okay, so the quick story there is we were doing our annual event here, and some of us here in New York
Community College,
Bronx Community
College,
Bronx, right. We were doing it here. That was the annual, and then occasionally, as I said, like with Ronald McDonald House or some of the other, but some of us would go out and do a little thing or appear at another event. And at one point, Gene Adams, again the co-founder, has a connection with a.
By the way, I love that you point up Gene Adams as a god.
Yeah, right. Actually, he's below now. Actually, and not that far below, but he's one floor down.
So what happens now?
Well, anyway, Gene Adams has a connection with a school in Senegal, and they knew that we've been doing KCC, I think, for about 3-4 years. And so the head of the school at one point was visiting here and said it would really be nice if you could do this, you know, in my country, in my city, at my school or somewhere there. And I thought, And that was the beginning. We figured out ways to raise funds because, you know, we are not underwritten by anybody. We figured out enough ways to do some fundraisers and to pull together about half the money we needed. But we took myself, Gene, another artist named Ray Felix, and we took an art exhibit called Color of Comics, and we went over to Senegal, to the city of Dakar, and we did, for 10 days, we did workshops there. The American Embassy gave us a space in one of their buildings, so we would set up this exhibit of the artwork, which was characters of color, whether they're created by people of color or not. And we had something like, I believe Gene said, something like 2,000 kids from the different schools in Dakar come and see the exhibit. Some of them took workshops with us. We did a panel at the University of Dakar on comics and creativity. And 2 of the people on my panel were African artists. And I want to tell you the story about that, but I'll just do it very quickly. Then there was a gentleman who had been assigned to work with me throughout the time I was there. Gene and I were there, and he theoretically was there to help hands-on. I was introduced to him as he was an engineer. That's been his career and everything. Well, somewhere during the intros to the kids and everything about myself, Gene, and these other 2 gentlemen are working with me, but one gentleman introduces his friend, and the kids get all excited. And I said, well, why? What did you say that they got all excited and looked at him? He says, well, he created a character, and the kids know this character. I said, but he didn't seem to expect that. He was sort of thrown. He says, oh, he didn't know that the kids know his work. Wow. So I began to introduce, every time I did a workshop, I would make him do a piece of the workshop. And so he starts showing and talking about, you know, pencilers and inkers and all these other. So when we did the panel, he's on the panel and he's talking and he's speaking in his native tongue, so it had to be translated for me. But he's speaking with such passion. And he started, there's a lot of tears in this story here. His eyes start watering. And I said, what is he saying? Because I'm feeling it. He's telling them that he became an engineer because he was told that is a real job. You have to get real work. You don't draw stuff. You don't do this. I mean, we hear that here in this country too. People don't think the arts have any value. So they are wrong. He pushed aside his passion or his purpose or his goal in life to get a real job and make a real living. And he's saying to these people, this is what I did. Never lose your passion. Never lose what you love. And I'm thinking, so that was the marker. We did that event, and it was so exciting. And I just said, okay, we got to be open to going where we're called. And how we make it happen, I don't know. So from that, I created a thing called KCC Comics Club International. So we got the web.
And what is that?
Well, we have the web. And, people can use the web for a lot of nefarious and disgusting things. Or we can use it to connect people. You and I both are from a similar generation, although I'm a little ahead of you on that one. But, hey. What was it they used to call it when we were in school? The pen pals.
Sure.
Well, okay, communicating with a child theoretically same age in another country. Well, why can we do that on the web? Except use comics as a common denominator. So I began to connect with teachers in different countries, put together programs with them and kids here in this country, and through the web and through my instructions, they would do a collaborative project and get to know each other at the same time, get to know a little bit about where they're from. So that's been going on for several years. And then I've received an invite to go and speak or appear at locations in other countries. And sometimes I've been able to include some aspect of KCC.
Amazing. So what are some of the other countries that KCC has visited or taught or interacted with? You've heard about Senegal.
Yeah, so to date, it's Senegal, which is Africa, India, Holland, several places in Holland, Ireland, Serbia, and several cities in Russia.
KCC International.
Yeah, that's right.
From Bronx Community College to Eugene.
The boogie down Bronx has been out there, yeah, right.
All right, so one of the fun things is that Kids Comic Con is for kids, right? And then we saw that it was for families. But we also see teachers and librarians come to KCC. What would you like teachers and librarians to know about KCC? Because they are definitely welcome.
Well, I think from my point of view, and I know there's some others as well, from my point of view, learn the power of creativity. It's not just picking out the right graphic novels or comics that you want to put on your shelves or show in your classrooms. It's about understanding that this is a doorway that opens up between where a child really is and where they might want to go. A lot of what I do in my workshops when I teach or when I speak is I say, using your imagination is a power. If you can conceive of coming up with a character in a story and then learn a process for putting it down on paper and telling that story, you can conceive of a lot of other things. And then it's just about, okay, what's the process I need to learn or create in order to get me from this idea to that finished product or that accomplishment? I think teachers and librarians and parents need to understand that's how we grow. That is exactly it. So comics are just a doorway. It's another tool on the belt. You know, whatever house you're building, that's another tool.
It's the idea of getting to yes.
Yeah.
That idea kind of comes from a debate or a negotiation, but even in a kid's own life, and it's yes I can, as opposed to no you can't.
Right, exactly. It should never be a question of...
We grew up in a generation no you can't. You can't fight against it.
It should always be about how can I?
Yeah.
You know, and I envision it now. How can I do that? And that's a lot of what KCC has done is the way I function, and it's a reflection of me. Is okay. You want us to go to Africa? How can we make that happen? You know, you want to communicate with kids in Wisconsin and kids in Russia or kids in Ireland. Okay, so what would it take to make that happen? Not stop at, gee, that's a lot of work. I don't know. No. What do you need to do?
Speaking of how. So how do you convince artists and writers and other creatives to volunteer their time for KCC each year?
Well, you know, you follow them around until you get the right photograph. No, it is not easy. And I will say that not because people are difficult human beings, but because, you know, volunteering your time is money, time is precious, you know, it's real. We're all struggling to keep it together. So, it's finding the people who are willing, that's one, and who have, you know, whatever the skill is that they're willing to share. It's then also vetting to make sure that they can share, because it's different talking adult to adult. You know, sharing what you do, explaining how you do it, teaching it to younger people, there's a skill set in there. You have to be willing not only to talk, but to listen and to be patient. And so we spend a certain amount of time trying to find those folks. You know, it helps if you love doing that sort of thing, or if you enjoy doing that sort of thing. But definitely, if you have the ability, we go and we find people who want to share what they're doing, not only their work, but also that process. And sometimes a little bit of themselves, you know. well, when I was your age, I went through this, I went through that, and this helped me to succeed. So that they make that connection. And so the kids realize, okay, this guy who I admire, or this person who can do this wonderful stuff, he or she was just like me when they were this age. And this is how maybe I can. So it's again about inspiring and empowering.
This is a crazy aspect of KCC.
Okay. What is he going to ask now, folks?
Why don't you charge admission at the annual KCC event in the Bronx, right here at Bronx Community College? No admission?
Well, yeah.
In a time when admission is going up.
Well, I mean, full transparency here, because it's not about rewriting history. We used to, but from the get-go, it was always about making it accessible to the communities, to anybody. And I figure if a person can go out and spend $5 on a ding dong, or on a latte, or on Coco Rico, or whatever it is they're buying, if you can spend $5 on that, you can spend $5 to come through the door. And guess what? I won't charge for your kids. So we never charge for the kids.
Right.
If it's 18, 19, and up, we would charge like $5. Would, right?
Not anymore.
Well, not anymore, because part of it is, the venues that we're in sometimes make it so easy for us to do this that we don't have to charge. All right, so that's one. On the other hand, see, this is the Lone Ranger thing again, right? On the one hand, to do it absolutely for no cost to anybody, there's no way to sustain it,
Right.
because there are expenses, right? And since we are not being underwritten on a regular basis, and yet we want to keep doing this, we have to figure out what does it cost us financially to do this, and how can we at least recoup that? So, like the table rentals, the artists and vendors, they rent the tables, but we haven't raised the price on the tables since day one.
Right.
So for 13 years, it's been $35 to $50 for the tables. We stopped doing the admission at the door for several years because at that point we were getting some sort of underwriting. So that helped to cover a little bit more. But none of this is about the making of the big bucks.
Right.
We're never going to be Emerald City Con, or we're never going to be New York City Con, or San Diego Con. What would be nice is if we had the ability to do more than what we're doing. And so in that case, finding a way to raise the funds so that we can grow and at the same time keep it available to the communities, to the people who need it most.
So basically, we're saying, hey, well, Bruce Wayne's and Tony Stark's out there, cut the check.
Yes.
Donations are welcome.
Absolutely.
To help open up kids' minds. What a great charity donation that would be.
And we have what we call a fiscal sponsor, which is an organization, a not-for-profit organization called Fractured Atlas. Mm-hmm. So any donations that people make, they can make to the Kids Comic-Con through Fractured Atlas and get the tax write-off.
Hear that, Bruce? Tony, let's go.
Yeah. Corporate checks are accepted.
So we talked about this. I want to go and ask you about, can you share with us some of your favorite special guests who have participated in KCC?
Wow. Okay, so the very, very first one is Scott Gimple. I'm not making that name up. Scott Gimple. One of the cartoon shows that gets no love on the level that it should. It was on for, I think, 2 seasons. It was called Fillmore. It was a Disney cartoon show that came on Saturday mornings. It's about a little black kid going to middle school, ex-middle school. I've always wondered about how Scott came up with that one. Mm-hmm. But he's on the safety patrol, and the safety patrol is like the police department of that school. And the middle school is like the ideal middle school. It's got everything. It's got lacrosse. It's got ice skating. It's got everything, right? But Scott had worked on Pepper Ann series before that, and then he created this Fillmore series. And I loved it. It was actual mysteries, real clues and everything, but also had little heart-to-heart moments. Fillmore's partner was Ingrid Third, a goth girl who also didn't quite fit in, and they bonded. It was just really good storytelling. And at one point, out of the blue, I contacted Scott in LA, and I said, look, love your show. I understand, it's not going to be on much longer and all that, or whatever it was at the time. So, but we would really love it if there was some way you could speak at our event. I was thinking maybe we would stream it or whatever. He says, well, if you can somehow, get someone to pay the airfare, I have friends I can stay with in New York, and everything else is covered. You can just do the airfare. I'm thinking, oh God, first class, Pan Am or whatever. He said, no, it can be like JetBlue, it can be economy, it doesn't matter. I said, you serious? He said, yeah. So sure enough, we got someone to underwrite his airplane ticket. We got somebody to do that, and he flew into New York. He hung out with some friends in Brooklyn or wherever it was. He took the subway up here.
Wow, that's cool.
Walked because we're not centrally located. I mean, you get off the train, you got a couple of blocks to walk here, right?
If you want to go to Bronx Community College, you gotta take the journey.
Yeah, right. But it's worth it. It's worth it. And here's this guy from LA, comes to New York, gets on the subway, comes up to the boogie down Bronx, gets himself from the train station, because we said, let us know when we'll have somebody. Said, nope, made it here, and gave a talk in one of the classrooms, jammed. Not only with kids, with adults. There were adults who, I think one couple came from Pennsylvania. They heard that he was going to be here.
Wow, that's fantastic.
The room was standing room only, and he just laid it out, how he came up with the concept, storyboarding, all of that stuff. That was the penultimate guest that we had. We had some other ones, Jamal Igo, and we had a couple of people who, oh my goodness, please forgive me. Somewhere in this we'll get the name right. But we've had a few guests who've come here and done some really remarkable things with the kids. But Scott is the one that stands out.
All right, I want to play for a minute. Who would your dream special guest be for KCC? And yes, that was a poem.
Yeah, I honestly can't say a particular person. I think what I would love, though, is I would love if specialists in film special effects, in animation, in maybe one or two popular artists and writers from the comic book industry, if some more of the master puppeteers, I mean, Leslie Carrero Rudolph and Noel McNeil are two of the puppeteers who worked on Sesame Street, a number of other projects. Noel, as a matter of fact, worked on Bear in the Big Blue House and Between the Lions and a few other things. They've been here off and on almost every year. So I would say maybe out of the 13 years, this will be the 13th year, so out of 12 years, they've been here probably about 5 or 6 years. And they're great. If we could have a few more people like them who really just bring it. They bring the heart, they bring the fire when they come, and just show aspects of your craft, how these things are done, inspire, fire kids up. I would be in heaven.
Excellent. You played the stage, so you left it open for everyone who would hear, oh, he's talking about me.
Yes. Well, it's also the truth, because,
We want you in there.
when I created, the version of KCC that I was trying to get other conventions to do, and then eventually Gene and I, came up with this, the thing that came right after that was people going, oh, well, you should do it in Detroit, you should do it in that. And I said, we can't be everywhere. And we shouldn't. There should be more of these elsewhere. So to me, it's always about get as many players in as you can, as long as they're there for the right reasons. You got to be there for real for the kids and the families.
Well, and that hasn't always happened.
No, it hasn't. And some folks have learned that's not a good thing for them to do,
We're not going to knock others down. We're
No.
going to celebrate KCC.
Thank you very much.
KCC has its eye on what's important, and that's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I have more than been honored every time I've been allowed to do something there.
And we'll let you come back again, too.
Thank God, I was hoping. How has your commercial sponsors contributed to KCC? And a friend who suggested this question mentioned Sakura, Abrams Publishing, Archie Comics, Mattel, etc.
Wow. Again, as I said, we're not underwritten. There's no fat wallet anywhere that's making all this happen. And equally so, for all the years that we've done this, at every one of our annual events, every child who comes through the door gets a bag of goodies. And usually it's a batch of comic books and sometimes novels and things that have been donated. And that's a big part of it. The companies that you've mentioned, as well as Canson and Midtown Comics and a few others, have donated things, items that we've been able to share not only with the kids and families, but also with the artists. So they've donated toys. Sakura does these beautiful pens, drawing pens and markers, great stuff. Archie Comics has donated comic books. They actually sometimes just made sure some of their artists have come to participate in this. Abrams Books, they've donated some wonderful books. As a matter of fact, we did a project, as you know, 2018, Mother Nature seemed to get a little irritated with the world. So we had earthquakes, we had floods, we had storms, and so KCC came up with a program we call Read to Recover. Because there were a number of places where the power was knocked out and the facilities were rare or at minimal level. And you can't, do your digital device, or you can't watch television, or maybe even you're not even getting any kind of radio broadcast. You can always read. Right? So we collected books from different sources, Archie, Abrams, Random House, and the idea was, and also some independents also donated books. And we batched them together and we sent the books to Florida, we sent books to Puerto Rico, right? And a couple of other places. And the idea being, again, reaching out and helping and also sending something in particular to kids, but sometimes teens and adults could also enjoy.
A bunch of my books got made.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's a part of it of giving. People have given to us, and we've also tried to give back as well as share.
And just because I don't want to get yelled at from the person with this question,
Mattel. Well, one of the super volunteers for KCC for a number of years is Paul Castiglia. And Paul worked for Mattel. And so he was able to discuss it with the company, and they were nice enough to donate. I had several things, but the one that stands out in my mind were these superhero Barbie dolls that had just come out. They actually even did a video movie of Barbie as a superhero, right? So they gave us a number of those, and we were able to give them out as prizes to kids who, played certain games or won a raffle or whatever that was, whatever we could do to get that into the hands of the kids.
Have any of your patrons gone on to create like a graphic novel or comic themselves?
Yeah, actually.
Tell us about it.
Two that I know of. There are probably more, but two that I know of that stand out. The very first KCC, and we have a photograph of her. There's a little girl who came with her dad, and we have shots of her like being amazed at some of the things that were going on, really having a good time. The following year, she came back with her own comic.
Very good.
Right. It was
I
so
remember
good.
that.
Right.
I remember her. Yeah.
Right. And she had it. Her father said, "Could she possibly maybe sell her own comic?" She said, "Absolutely." I said, "It's Kids Comic Con. What makes more sense than a kid selling their own comics?" So we had her. She had a table set up and she sold. So I think it was peanut butter and jelly. I don't remember exactly, but I think that theme was in there somewhere. So that was one. The other is an adult gentleman named Juan Espinoza. And Juan came to KCC, I think, one or two times. He actually works on the campus of Bronx Community College. And I met him when he came here, but it was, again, people roaming around and saying hello. So I'm like the maitre d' of my own club. I'm like Rick in Casablanca, right? So I met him, but that was all I remembered. A year or so later, he comes back, and he has created his own comic. And I'm not going to remember the name right now. I know Administrator is in there somewhere, but we'll put that in there somehow. But anyway, Juan created his own comic. He got an artist to draw it. They published it. It's great. And he came to sell it at the con, which was great. And now he's starting to do other cons. And his family's involved. So his wife, his kids are all involved. So some great stuff. And I just got word a few days ago that it's now available in Spanish.
Oh, cool.
And on some digital, like Comixology does it. There's a special platform that sells Spanish comics. And so this is now both in English available and now in Spanish. So he's growing. He's growing. It's great.
So let's talk about the con itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone's listening and say, "Oh man, I gotta see this. What's it like?" Right? So the main floor, we'll call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
When people go there, is it just comics? What do they see at the different tables?
What they see when they come in is an array of people at different tables, and the tables can be, or the areas can be, anything from comic books and graphic novels or novels to puppetry and other creative forms. There are handmade merchandise items that are related to the comic book industry, but like, for instance, there's this young couple that's come for 3 years now, and they sell these little brooches and other types of decorative handmade jewelry that might have Captain America's shield on it or things like that. There's a comic book store called The Lair, but they also
in the Bronx. Right?
Yeah, right. It's in the Bronx, on the east side of the Bronx. But they also role playing games and cards of it. So they come and they have this big section. They also have these. They look to me like bobblehead dolls type things that they have. I'm sure if I had held one up, people would know what I'm talking about. But they have this huge setup. There's also certain areas, there are tables where kids can do handicrafts. Like, for instance, Matthew Casper is one of our volunteers, and he set up a table of sock puppet material. So he has all these wonderful colored socks, and then he has all the little items you need to put on eyes and
button eyes.
Right, all that. So, and again, this is another one of those things where the kids and the parents can sit and create these things together, and then they get to take them home and play with them all that. And then we have like Phyllis Novin, who's an inker in the industry. She does a whole table where she works with kids and they can draw and ink their own characters. So there's a lot of different things. We also have Mark Simmons, who, not related to me. Mark does a lot of science projects with kids. So we've had drones here, and again, tied into comics and things like that. A robot, he had a robot one year.
Wow.
It was about yay high, about this high, off the floor, and you could control it, and so he had it walking around the exhibit. We've had public speakers. There was a gentleman, Jimmy, I'm trying to remember Jimmy's last name, and I don't.
Olsen, no.
Right. Yeah, he's in the comics too. But Jimmy has a physical challenge, and he's done a comic book about that, and he gave a presentation about what it was like growing up with that particular physical challenge, and what eventually led him to telling his story through comics and all that. And now that comic has been picked up in a special magazine that's now publishing it. So we have a lot of things that sort of spiral around or whirl around in the world of comics, but it also says creativity, it also says science and education, it also says entrepreneurship, right? All of these things pulled together by the theme of comics.
Excellent. So,
I did leave out cosplayers. I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, let's
forgive me.
that.
I'm so sorry. I left out cosplayers. We have a lot of cosplayers who come, people come in their own costumes, but almost every year we've had East Coast Avengers. All right, and these folks have come from different parts of the state, right? As Captain America, as Bucky, as Iron Man, as female Thor, as well as Thor, as Batgirl. We have all these, and they come and they walk around and play with the kids on the screen. We've also had the 501.
No Hawkeye? No,
Not yet.
Come on, East Coast.
Yeah, right. And then we've had the 501, which is the Star Wars. Okay. Right? I think I got that right, the 501?
Yep.
Yeah, right. And they come, so we've had Darth Vader moving, and all that. And wonderful how the kids react, because this particular gentleman does makeup, so when he takes off the mask, he's still got the dark eyes under there. So it's great, because you see some kids looking like, wait a minute,
we're in trouble.
Right, and then you have others who are excited, they want to sword fight with them. So there's been a lot of activity and excitement around what we do here. We even had an art exhibit 2 years. As a matter of fact, we're going to have one this year too. Kids art, but also artwork from professionals in the galleries nearby as well on the campus. And this year, the kids art exhibit is going to include not only artwork from kids who have been involved with KCC in some way, shape, or form, but also there's a program called, I believe it's called Books and Beyond. And it's a program that produces books here in the United States for children in Rwanda.
Wow.
Because the schools that they have, at least the ones that this organization services, the schools only had one book. And the teachers would have to copy the assignments out of the book onto the blackboard. And the kids would have to copy down the assignments and do their answers on individual paper or slates. They never had books to take home.
Wow.
So Nancy Uslan created this program that involved young people here as well as educators creating these books, get the books published, send them to Rwanda so that the children could actually have the books, could take them home. Right. So what happened was there's this book they were working on this year, last year and this year, needed illustrations, and they wanted them to be children's art. So students in a couple of different schools in the U.S. and one of the schools I provided, and then a group of students that I work with in Russia did artwork for this particular book. And this book's just been published recently. So all of that artwork that were through students that KCC and I provided will be up on exhibit. So that's another international aspect.
That's wild.
I love it. I'm sorry, I gotta say that again. Kids in Russia, kids in the United States creating artwork and a book for kids in Rwanda in Africa. I love it. I love it.
KCC, bring the world together.
Write that on a shirt, please.
Comics over chaos.
Yeah, people over politics. Yeah.
So what are some of the most popular workshops at KCC? Because beyond the main floor, you have workshops.
Yeah, we have in different classrooms, we'll have workshops. The popular ones are, what we call Art of Making Comics 101. So that's basically drawing comic book characters, not necessarily the familiar ones, but how do you draw comic book characters? Either goofy, funny ones or muscular ones, right? More realistic looking ones. There's also Sci-Tech Hero, which is one of the workshops I developed, which shows kids how we take science fact and turn it into science fiction. So how, what in Iron Man's suit is real and what isn't, and what real science do you know that we could turn into a fictional scenario. I've done this for years at different conventions and as well as our own. So that's another popular one. And then what we find when certain artists are available to come and do our event is there certain artists who are really great at drawing technical stuff or drawing wild, crazy creatures and things. And so we'll have a special workshop for those things.
I have a few more questions.
Okay.
What gives you the most joy and satisfaction when you look back at each of the KCC events?
That they happen.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
That's always a major minor miracle, right?
Yeah. One of the things that, again, I've said this before, but I'll just press the point. When you don't have consistent funding, when each time we go to do this, we don't know how much money it's going to cost. I mean, we know what certain things will cost, but anything else comes up, we don't know what that's going to be, and we don't know where the money's going to come from. Sometimes we dip into our own pockets and we don't see that again. But the bottom line is there's always these challenges of how we're going to pull this off, and should that last one be the last one, and so forth and so on. And each year for now it'll be 13 years, we've managed to pull it off. And that hundreds of people came through the door and left smiling. And the testimonials, verbal and otherwise, that we've received from the artists, from the patrons, like I said, the grandmother, the aunt who lives in the Bronx, who drove to Philadelphia the night before to get her nephews so she could bring them here, stayed here all day, and at 6 o'clock when they were leaving, she's going to drive them back to Philadelphia. These are the things that make it worthwhile. The librarian, you mentioned librarians. The first year, librarians flew in from Chicago.
Wow.
Yeah, go figure, right? So every year that we've been able to make this happen has been a blessing.
So I actually have two more questions.
Okay. Uno, dos.
What do you see as the future of Kids Comic Con? A fourth year, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I think that my goal, people might say my dream, but no, my goal is that it grows. And I think for it to grow, we have to approach this from a little bit more of a pragmatic standpoint. We've managed to, from the heart, make this happen for 12 years. And I think in order for it to continue, because it serves a purpose, it's not just a pat on the back for me. I've been blessed to see things happening at the event that have said, yeah, this is valid, but then also to know that some of the very kids who came here that first year have returned as teenagers or young adults to help because they're still connected to it. We don't see them for a year, but they want to be here the next time. So I want it to grow. I want to sound not egotistic, but to have a bigger dream. I want it to last beyond me. So my goal is to make it more self-sustaining. And that means that we've got to find more solid ways to fund it, to remove obstacles that prevent it from expanding and therefore serving more people. Whatever problems that need to be solved, I think we need to sort of buckle down and address those, and so that we can be here longer and do more.
Just in case somebody out there wants to be just in case somebody out there wants to be a checkbook hero, I think that probably the way they can really see what they're investing in would be to come to a KCC event. So where is the next KCC event?
Bronx Community College is at 2155 University Avenue in the Bronx, right?
And when is the KCC con going to be?
It is April 20th, that's Saturday, April 20th, 2019, from 10 a.m. in the morning until 6 p.m. in the evening.
I'm going to have a great time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And cut that check.
Yeah, you too, if you really like,
That would be fantastic.
We won't turn the other one down, I assure you.
Yeah, well, mine would go to a good thing, wouldn't it?
And actually, if anybody's interested in learning more about KCC, we have these lovely business cards, by the way.
There you go.
These cute things. But anyway.
Where can we find you?
Well, one, if they want to write to me, it's Alex at Kids Comic Con. So it's KIDSCOMIC con.com. Kids Comic Con. So Alex at Kids Comic Con.
I have it on the social media.
Well, the website is, again, Kids Comic Con. We're on Instagram at, it's right here. Instagram is KCC Fun for All, and that's KCC Fun for, the number 4, all, right? And we're on Twitter, which is KCC Kids. So that's at Twitter. Right. And then, of course, I think that's just, Facebook. We're kidscomiccon.com on Facebook.
Beautiful. Come see us, come visit, come enjoy, pick up a pencil or a pen, draw.
Cut the check.
There you go.
Yeah. But the other thing, too, is come and support the artists and so forth who come and help make this event what it is.
Beautiful. Alex, it's always a great pleasure to talk to you. Thanks again. And thanks for all your work with KCC.
You got it, Chris. Take care.
Peace.